Hey, friends, this is Jen Gray, your host of Be Genuine with Jen podcast, where together we discover the power of authenticity, mindset, and personal growth. I am super excited for you to join me today for episode 11 of the show. Today, we are going to talk about a really powerful illustration that I heard, and I'm like, I've got to share it. So it's about a goldfish, but here's the powerful point that we're just kind of give you a glimpse of what we're going to talk about today. So, empathy, I feel like, is like a really like cliche word, but I think that there's a really important difference. Between empathy and sympathy. And in my own terminology, I think empathy is when you can step into someone else's shoes, and sympathy is where you just simply feel sorry for someone. And if you've ever gone through like a really hard season of life, it's one thing for someone to say, "Oh, I'm so sorry," or it's another thing for someone to like step in the well with you and sit with you and be with you and walk, listen to you, walk when you need to walk and stop when you need to stop. And so that's kind of what I want to talk about today. But when I'm like, this is this is so powerful. And so today's going to be pretty short because I really want this just to hit home. And I may not even land the plane. I may just present it and then let you land your own plane, because I think this is the kind of conversation it's going to hit you maybe in a completely different space than it hit me. But I want to take you to this college classroom and walk with me here. So it's a science college classroom. And you've got these black, slick tables, those high top tables where you have to sit on bar stools to sit there, right? You can picture it with the sinks on the walls. You've got microscopes over here. You've got the whole thing, right? It feels like very sterile. And you have this professor at the front of the room. And at the front of the room, he puts this bowl, and inside the bowl is water. And in the water is a goldfish. And right before he leaves the room, here's what he says. He says, "All right, guys, I'm about to leave the room. And when I leave the room, you are not to touch this goldfish at all. If you touch it, you will fail my class." And so as soon as he says that, they're thinking, okay, dude, like we don't have to touch the goldfish. Like it's perfectly fine, like whatever. So they don't really think much of it. Well, before the professor leaves, the professor dips his hand inside the goldfish bowl and puts the goldfish on the slick, black, cold desk. And the professor walks out of the classroom. He walked out of the classroom with very specific instructions, right? He walked out of the classroom with very specific instructions, right? The specific instructions were, if you touch this goldfish, you're going to fail my class. So like all the students are like looking around, and you watch this goldfish and it just like starts to flap. It's like flapping helplessly on the table, right? Like goldfish are not meant to be alone. They're not meant to be out of their fishbowl. They're not meant to be, stranded without water. Okay. And so it's flapping on the table and flapping on the table. And like the students are like looking around each other and they're like, dude, what, this is not cool. Like, what is going on? Like, okay, it's one thing to leave a goldfish in a goldfish bowl and say don't touch it, whatever. Now you've literally put this goldfish in danger, flapping around on the desk, and you've told us not to touch it, and if we touch it, then we're going to fail. So there's like this internal battle going on, and they're just watching it, and it's like it's flapping, and as it starts to flap, then it starts to like not flap as strong, right? Like it was like crying for help, and now it's getting helpless and it's getting weak, and they know what's happening. They know, the circle of life. What's going on is that he will not survive that long outside of the water. All the goldfish needs is one person to step in to save his life. But the fear of failing literally has everyone in that classroom paralyzed. And no one feels the authority and feels the freedom to save the goldfish, because someone in their authority told them that goldfish is not worth saving. There's this one girl. She couldn't take it anymore. She's looking at it and she's watching, and she's like, y'all, this is stupid. The goldfish, there's no reason for that goldfish to die. There's no way that, like, if I fail class because I wouldn't let this helpless animal die, then so be it. So the girl steps forward and puts the goldfish back in the bowl. And about 10 minutes later, the professor walks back in the classroom. The professor's mortified. And the professor said, I left you with one responsibility, and that was to leave the goldfish alone. Who touched the goldfish? Now, y'all, everybody knows the goldfish was innocent, right? Everybody watched, everybody saw this goldfish did nothing to deserve like this horrible slow death. What do you think happened? What do you think? What do you think they did? They immediately outed the girl who sided with the goldfish, and they were like, we are not going down with her. We all felt bad for the goldfish, but not bad enough to like put our like lives on the line and like put our reputation on the line. Like, like I'm going to pass the class. I'm not failing the class for a goldfish, whatever. And they outed her. And the professor said, every single one of you has a heart inside your body. Every single one of you has an innate desire to know what is right and what is wrong. And if you can let an authority figure tell you and convince you that what is wrong is right and paralyze you from making the right choice, you will fail the rest of your life. Because if you don't stand for anything, you will fall for everything. And when I heard this illustration, it hit so deep. And here's why. I'll just give you a glimpse of my story. So a few years ago, I worked at a church, and I want you to know I'm telling you this story out of vulnerability, and I'm not coming to you it's not a source of pain anymore. And that's how come I know I can share this story. I hope it gives hope to you that maybe you're in a story like mine, and maybe it's hard. And you are in the pain, and you are in the vulnerability, you are in the tears, you are in that season. And with that, I want you to know that I'm empathizing with you. Because when I talked at the beginning about empathy versus sympathy, right? Sympathy was feeling sorry for that goldfish, right? There's plenty of students in that classroom that genuinely felt sorry for that goldfish. There's only one person in that classroom that had empathy on the goldfish, because that person knew that they were capable and had the ability to come alongside and to provide the goldfish the help that it needed. And didn't matter what type of ridicule or condemnation that they went through, that ultimately helping and saving that goldfish was all that mattered. I was in a season, and I worked at a church. I loved my job. I had a passion and a heart for helping high school girls. Absolutely loved what I did. And I went through a season, and when I went through counseling, and anyways, I made the brave choice to actually leave the marriage that I was in. And because of that decision, instead of being supported and embraced and encouraged and like come alongside, because I had 4 kids, there's a lot of fear, there's a lot of things. I was the goldfish. I didn't fit their mold anymore. And in a sense, especially with the then leadership, I became a liability instead of an asset. And so I resigned instead of being fired, and I left my job. And in a lot of things, when I left my job, I lost a lot of community, and a lot of things where there's a lot of layers to the story. And again, this is not a cast blame. This is me relating with that goldfish. What I felt like in that season was a goldfish that had been taken out of the comfort of my community, my job, my people, and now I am flapping on a table, not really sure where I fit in, not really sure what's going to happen, not really sure of any of that. And I was so desperate for someone to come alongside and say, hey, you still belong. There's still room for you. There's still space for you. And I didn't feel that a lot. And some of it was my own pain. Hurt people, right? But so much of it, here's what I learned through that whole entire season. I don't blame anybody in the classroom that watched me flap along the desk, because the system in which they were trained in and the community and the culture in which they were trained in, I didn't belong there anymore. And they didn't know what to do. And a lot of times in our ignorance, we do things that are hurtful and it's not intentional. I do not believe anyone intentionally set out to hurt me. And what you may have experienced in a hard season of your life, y'all, is you now have a message because you've been through a lot of mess. And now the rest of my life and the rest of your life, you can relate to someone in a way that you never could before. And when I talk about being genuine and when I talk about being authentic, and the most authentic version of yourself is the biggest superpower, listen, the goldfish wasn't worried about the 100 people that were staring at him and didn't do anything. All the goldfish was grateful for was the one person who cared enough to reach their hand out, risk everything, and save them. You have this opportunity every single day. And I mentioned before, you may be in that goldfish season of your life. And if so, I hope even this conversation can be a rescue point where you can see, hey, guess what? Somebody else sees me. And if so, I want you to shoot me a DM. I want to connect with you. But y'all, there may be people in your life that you are so worried about fitting in and all of the things, and you are missing the hurting people in your life. This is no shame on you, but here's what I want to say. If you look out and you look in your life, and if you walk through and everyone is just this forest of trees where it's this beautiful landscape of trees in front of you, but guess what? You may be missing the individual tree that needs your love and your touch. What if you were the person who put the goldfish back in where they belong? If you saw someone in their pain, and instead of being like, I don't have time to get messy with that person and dive into the pit of that pain with them, I'm just going to, pat a $5 bill on top of them and move along. You miss out on intersecting your life with someone else's story. And you may miss out on the biggest blessing, the biggest miracle of your life, of realizing your life has a purpose. Your pain has a purpose. And I was in a group, and we were talking about a lot of things. We were talking about just the kind of people that we want to be. And the reason this conversation is now is because we are 1 week away from 2024. Maybe your goal and your change in your life is that you need to have eyes for the goldfish in your life. You need to have a heart of empathy for the people around you that you could get in the well with and you could help. How would your life be different in 2024 if you took your eyes off of your own pain and looked to someone else and realized that your life could be the life preserver for somebody else's life? If you believe in God, you have to know that God has given you a heart for other people. We were not put on this earth to be centered around ourselves. If you are, then you're just missing it. So again, like, there's no shame for the people who just looked by and didn't know what to do with me. No. And I don't say the story for you to feel like, oh yeah, everyone abandoned me too. Let's deal with the pain. Let's deal with the hurt. That hurt is real. But I think the more important part is, who do you become in that pain? Because listen, if you become hard-hearted and you become bitter, then guess what? You're not going to have the heart to help the next goldfish that's flapping and needs you. But if you let your pain soften your heart and give you a purpose to see people that other people do not see, imagine the impact of your life. That's who I think we could be more of in 2024. We could be people of kindness. We get people of courage. It takes courage to get in the messiness of somebody's life. You may have friends that are going through really, really hard times, and you're like, oh, I just don't have time to deal with that. Okay, I understand there's boundaries. But what would you need in that season of your life? Are you too busy? Do you even have a space? I believe our lives are more rich when we give our lives and our hearts to other people. So here we go. It's 2024. If you're a goldfish on the table, then I want you to know that you are loved and you are seen and you are never alone. Or maybe you're a goldfish who's just been put back into the glass bowl and you are re-finding out who you are and you are reinventing yourself from the bottom up. Maybe that's similar to my season of life. Figuring out what you want to put back in the fishbowl and what do you want to just keep out of the fishbowl. And I want you to know if there's things in your fishbowl that you need to get out, then you can get it out. We're never stuck, and that's another conversation. But listen, if you have a breath in your lungs, it's because God's not done with you yet. Maybe somebody needs to hear that today. And if so, that's why this podcast is happening on December 22nd, 2023. Because never for the rest of my life do I want any fish out of the bowl, flapping on the table, feeling alone, and me not having the eyes to see how I could intersect my life, my time, my words, my care to help somebody else on their journey. And it takes a lot of intentionality. But I'm here to commit with you guys. We got to be better. We got to love people better. Y'all, life is hard, really hard. And it's so much better when you find genuine, authentic people to do life with. So with that, it just seemed appropriate. That's how I would close out 2023. What we're going to want more of in 2024 is kindness, love, empathy. And know that you are never alone. And I am always cheering you on. And you guys, let's embrace the fact that we are worthy of love. We are enough. And let's be genuine. All right. I love you guys so, so much. And that may seem super crazy for so many of you I have not met yet, but I want you to know one thing. There are people all across this world who hate people for absolutely no reason. I will always choose to love people for no reason until I find out all the millions of reasons there are to love you. So with that, I love you. And I will see you guys in 2024. Be genuine.